If the name Renee Lima Marin doesn't ring a bell, I bet you recognize his life story. Convicted felon, mistakenly released for 8 years, then sent back to jail, then pardoned by the governor, then detained by ICE for deportation. Well, today, Lima Marin's attorney says he could be released for good any day now. Our Marshall Zellinger is following that.
And Kyle, he's been teased with freedom twice, the first time mistakenly released from prison, and most recently when Governor John Hickenlooper pardoned him, and then he was taken into ICE custody. In 2000, Renee Lima Marin was sentenced to 98 years in prison for robberies when he was a teenager, but he was mistakenly released in 2008. He stayed out of trouble, started a family, then the error was caught in 2014 and he went back to prison. In May, the governor pardoned him, but Lima Marin was taken into ICE custody. He was brought to the U.S. from Cuba when he was 2 years old, and he had a deportation order back to Cuba. Now, a federal judge reviewing his case dismissed it, meaning he should be free to stay. But ICE has 30 days to appeal, though Lima Marin's own attorney thinks a decision is usually made in a day or two and not 30. Kyle.
All right, Marshall, thank you. President Trump is declaring an end to the so-called war on coal. In Colorado, that battle's already been fought, and coal lost. Despite the EPA this week dumping the federal Clean Power Plan, our politics guy, Brandon Ritterman, says coal is already on the way out in Colorado.
First off, technically nothing changes from the way it is today because the Clean Power Plan was never implemented by the federal government. But Colorado was following it anyway. Here's what the governor said. We have already set greenhouse gas reduction goals that would go beyond those set forth in the Clean Power Plan. That's according to Governor Hickenlooper in a statement today. But more specifically, the governor's office tells us the state is on track to hit the now canceled Clean Power Plan emissions goals for year 2025. And they say Colorado will beat the 2030 goals if Xcel Energy gets approval for the power plan it sent to state regulators. While we're on Xcel Energy, just so happens I talked to their energy supply guru about this possibility earlier this year. And she told me they plan to never build a coal-fired power plant in Colorado again, ever.
And quite frankly, we don't think we could get one permitted even if we wanted to do one. Yeah. So we are not looking.
Even in the new administration?
We agree.
They're undoing the war on coal, I thought. Even if they got rid of any of the restrictions on coal plants, you guys probably still wouldn't do it? Is that what I'm hearing?
We would not.
And that's not all because of regulatory issues. She told us it's economics. You build a power plant to last for 50 years or so, and they don't know what coal is going to cost in 50 years. But Xcel says it can already make power from wind and natural gas for cheaper. For Next, I'm Brandon Ritterman.
So obviously the impact of the EPA's decision will vary by state. Here in Colorado at this point, Xcel says 46% of its power comes from coal, and the plan is to cut that in half in the next 9 years, no matter what the EPA does. Hey, speaking of Xcel, there are still more than 2,800 Coloradans waiting for power to be restored after yesterday's snowstorm. Xcel was aiming for everyone to be back online by now. The nonprofit Colorado Ethics Watch is closing down at the end of the year and blaming President Trump, sort of, which would not surprise conservatives who have long accused that outfit of mainly watching the ethics of Republicans and letting Democrats slide. But the head of the Good Government Watchdog Group tells me it's not about politics, it's just that the focus and the funding is shifting to the federal level these days.
In the age of Trump, there's so much going on at the federal level. People look to Colorado and say, you know, where's the big problem? You know, what are we trying to address when there's so much going on federally? So the federal DC-based ethics groups are doing really well, and those of us out in the states, not so much.
You contrast local versus federal. I'd love for you to contrast government ethics in Colorado versus other states. I covered politics in New York before I came here, and everybody here is walking around with a halo compared to New York. What's your take?
Well, I agree with you about New York or Illinois, Alaska, Arizona, New Mexico, to name a couple of states closer to us, have worse ethics problems than we do. You know, we're not perfect. A lot of things have come up through the systems we have that show that everything's not on the up and up, but I think in general we're probably in the top half of states for good ethical behavior.
When it was founded in 2006, Colorado Ethics Watch published a most corrupt list, just like its former national parent organization, the left-leaning Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington. The Colorado guys gave up the most corrupt list because they said that they couldn't find enough corrupt politicians in high office in Colorado. Insert your comment here. My full discussion with Luis Toro is on the next YouTube page. DIA is starting testing on its enormous new welcome sign, even though it is no closer to resolving the surprise issue that has stuck the airport with the entire bill. The cost of that sign, 900 light poles strung along Pena, was supposed to be split with Panasonic. The company was going to get a cut of the revenue from advertising on the sign. But a little-known federal highway rule is greatly limiting the ads. So DIA is having to pay for the entire thing out of airport revenues, and it may take an actual act of Congress to get the ad restrictions lifted. So when the sign goes live after testing later this month, it can only be used to advertise airport businesses. Let's be honest, the airport can only recoup so much revenue with ads for those little kiosks where they sell sunglasses and neck pillows. Denver's 4-year quest for fancy new trash cans is finally complete. All 176,000 households have completed the conversion. Last neighborhood to get them? Congress Park. So when the new trash cans came in, crews moved out the dumpsters from the alleys. Not everybody was happy about that. But here's the idea. The city says the homes that were using dumpsters now using cans will throw away less. There's just less space, and they'll recycle more. Almost 80 pounds more recycling per household each year, the city says. So as Denver goes all streamlined for trash collection, a smart Next viewer named Jason wondered why one neighborhood in town gets special treatment that seems wasteful. In Stapleton, he writes, garbage, compost, recycling trucks, they drive down each alley twice. They go up one side and down the other, instead of everybody just putting their cans on one side like every place else in Denver. So twice the fuel, twice the time, twice the manpower. That was a good question, Jason. We took it to Public Works, which acknowledged Stapleton is unique because of its density. The city says all the bins on one side in Stapleton would block the garages, which tend to be pretty close together. So trash, recycling, and compost crews make double runs through Stapleton. Public Works confirmed Stapleton's the only city neighborhood that gets the 2-pass trash treatment. It is one thing to volunteer for war, quite another thing to join the fight before your own country does. But that's what a few Coloradans did. Some of them were just out of high school when they joined World War II alongside Canada and Great Britain. Our Noel Brennan has that story.
Before U.S. airmen were called to duty,
it was an era that we cannot forget.
10 young men from Colorado were compelled to fight.
This is the memory that we have to save, we have to cherish, and we have to teach.
Luke Elbert Allen, Frank Raymond Boyles. Their memories are tabs in a binder, black and white pictures, condolence letters.
They felt they needed to go and stand up for what is right and against tyranny.
James Campbell Davey joined in June of '41, Billy Orrin Gates in 1940.
America was not yet in the war at that time, but Canada, in support of the United Kingdom, was in the war.
Leroy Gover of Loveland flew with the Royal Air Force. James Christian Nelson of Greeley did too.
They were part of the greatest generation, and we will never forget their sacrifice.
Only 3 survived the war.
7 out of 10 died in action.
Clyde Homer J. Jr., Frederick Holbrook Mon, the East High School buddies are buried beside each other in England.
The words fail me in terms of how to pay my respects and Canada's respects to them.
Robert Henry Hendricks, Richard Earl Todd. Their names won't be forgotten.
These are amazing young men that we're recognizing on Saturday.
These will be the 10 newest members of the Colorado Aviation Hall of Fame.
This means that the pilots have contributed to the aviation of the state of Colorado.
Young men compelled to fight. Men we should commit to remember. For Next, I'm Noel Brennan.
And so we ask you to please look at the faces of all the men that we have photos for. Perhaps there is an uncle, a father, a grandfather among them. Perhaps you could show these to an older family member, see if they recognize the names. Because the Colorado Aviation Historical Society has not been able to get in touch with any of the family members of any of the men. They're hoping that someone watching this story or someone who sees it online will recognize a name or a face. We'll be able to join the ceremony Saturday at the Lakewood Country Club to honor those brave men. Pop quiz. Who can tell me why this car with snow chains still got stuck? #HeyNext if you know the answer. Denver's old fire stations don't all make great new fire stations, but thank goodness they weren't all torn down in the name of progress.
We've got all kinds of uses in our old firehouses, but we're still able to preserve the character and the history of those buildings.
And a father using photography to cope with unimaginable grief and comfort other families.
Capturing moments that won't ever happen again.
You'll meet him next. All right, how did everybody do with our first taste of snow this season? Seems like 99% of you did just fine. And that other 1%, you tried real hard, you know? Like the owner of this Kia Soul, who put snow chains for the slippery trek up the hill on 285 and got stuck anyway. Probably because, as Karen Duhame noted when she sent us this picture, front-wheel drive vehicles work best with the chains on their front wheels. Karen says she and her husband had a good 5-minute laugh over this.
What a difference a day makes. Sunshine, blue skies, and temperatures reflecting the sun today. A beautiful afternoon and evening. Our high close to 60, close to the average, and we'll go warmer tomorrow. As a matter of fact, for the rest of the week, no significant storms on the horizon. Our most recent storms in the Midwest, the next storm moving on shore in California, will bring little relief for firefighters in their efforts with the multiple blazes across that state. But it will bring in a slight cooling trend, and that little front will be here probably by the weekend. The moisture with it very limited. We have a quiet night, a dry night, and overnight low temperatures are expected to be above freezing. With fair skies and 36, that's where we'll start tomorrow morning. Temperatures back in the lower 70s. We go even warmer on Thursday. We get you into a weekend that looks just terrific. Our Moroccos take the field on Sunday night with a kickoff temperature right at 60 degrees, Kyle.
Kathy, thanks. One of my favorite places to grab a beer is a Denver firehouse. Fear not, I am not distracting the good men and women who protect our city. It's a brewery that's in an old firehouse. Today, a fire historian who works at Denver Fire No. 1 gives us all a history lesson.
Fire Station No. 1 is our museum.
Denver has about 360 historic landmarks, and a whole handful of them are firehouses.
And I'm really happy to see that we have so many. We really have a lot compared to a lot of cities.
We've got firehouses that act as firehouses, and we've got firehouses that are condos, restaurants.
Some of them are really historical firehouses, like Station 18, being the first one in the country for a particular style. That particular firehouse was the first firehouse built in the nation to be a bungalow firehouse, which means it was made for a motor-driven apparatus, no horses. So that was 1912. Montclair Station No. 14. It's a typical 1930s style. It's very unique because it has multicolored brick. It was designed to fit that neighborhood, and when it was built, those were very nice houses. Being there was kind of an exclusive neighborhood. It's a very 1930s building. The other one at the same period of time, Station 11, was built in the 1930s with a grant, and it was built to reflect their neighborhood, and it's an architectural gem also. 1080 Clayton is a monstrous firehouse. It was built in the 1890s. One of the top architects in Denver designed that firehouse. Every restored old firehouse in Denver is just gratifying to see. It's much more than tearing it down and building something new on it.
Yes, indeed, some gorgeous buildings. Station 26 is that former firehouse turned brewery that I mentioned off the top. It is not a city landmark, and probably a good thing because I'm not sure they could have stuck a brewery inside. Try the IPAs. A father recalls his worst moment.
I just crumpled down on the ground on the sidewalk and was just crying, could not believe that this had happened.
And he tells us how he got up again and found new purpose in helping others. Then, it's not that you can't find a payphone in Colorado anymore. You might just need to wipe away the cobwebs. Next. So many families wish for just one more photo to remember a loved one who's gone. A man from Parker named Johnny Medina is taking those photos for families because he knows why they matter.
here. We were just sitting in front of the house and my wife took a picture. She's got a smile ear to ear. I think she's wearing my sunglasses. Picked up a camera about 20 years ago and started in photography. I think what I like about it is the creativity of it and capturing moments that won't ever happen again. This was taken in the hot tub at their grandparents' in Kansas City. July 28th of this year, a little more than 2 months ago, my world was rocked when my wife called me, and I could tell she was upset. And she told me, I have some bad news. Michaela's died. She died by suicide. And I remember something must have hit the ground. I don't know what it was, but I was holding my phone to my ear, and I told my wife, I said, hang on, I just dropped my phone. And I didn't even realize I was holding it in my hand. I just crumpled down on the ground on the sidewalk and was just crying, could not believe that this had happened. And I told my wife, I said, you've got to come home. I can't handle this. Now that she's gone, reliving a moment through a photograph is everything. It's all I have to hang on to her, is those memories in my heart. I mean, it's to have something like that is huge. After she died, I realized that how important that was, and that I needed to start something. I needed to do something. So I created an organization called Through the Lens to photograph people that are terminally ill, that won't be with us much longer. She was wearing this the day she died, and it says love all the way around it. And that's what Michaela was. She was just pure love to everyone. My photography's definitely helped me cope with it. It's allowed me, through her, to be able to see things in a different way. I tell her, obviously, that I love her. As a father, I wasn't there when she needed me the most. And I would just hold her and tell her that I love her.
Johnny Medina's organization, Through the Lens, is his chance to take candid photos of people who are terminally ill, give them to their families for free. You can learn how to support his effort in this article on 9news.com. When was the last time you saw a payphone? When was the last time you used a payphone? We have a well-used one next. If this program had been on the air 30 years ago, this is how you all would have been providing us feedback. Connie Martin spotted a forgotten payphone in Burlington, Colorado. Cobwebs, abandoned old school phone book chained up there. She said, well, guess cell phones rule. David Smith with the comment of the day about the Kia stuck in the snow with the snow chains on the rear wheels. He said, why would a hamster know if the car's front or rear wheel drive?